Okay, so I welcome you back for the second lecture on Arthur Miller as a playwright. In the last lecture, we discussed his biographical details. We talked about the historical tradition of drama writing in America. We tried to situate him in that particular tradition. Now, in this particular lecture, let us dive deep into his art as a playwright, and let us talk about some of the literary techniques and dramatic devices which he uses in order to enhance his art as a playwright. So there are certain literary techniques and dramatic devices which are repeatedly used by Arthur Miller, because art is also very important. And because I have always maintained this position, and the position is that the themes are going to be limited, because our life experiences are of that nature. But every playwright actually, or every artist actually, tries to enhance the effect by using certain techniques and by using certain devices. The technical mastery of techniques and devices also add a great deal to the armory of any artist. And if you look at the plays written by Arthur Miller, you would see that he has used certain numbers of techniques and certain numbers of devices. If you look at the genre, if you look at the content and the presentation of that content in Miller's plays, then you would see that Miller has very deftly combined two literary techniques. One is realism and the second one is expressionism. Now, I will speak a little bit about realism and about expressionism, but before that, let me remind you that in the last lecture, when we were talking about influences working on Miller, we actually talked about two playwrights. I told you that it was Henrik Ibsen who influenced him a great deal, and at the same time, Anton Chekhov also influenced him a great deal. Now, Chekhov is known for his psychological realism, and Ibsen became very important for modern theatre because he introduced the element of realism in theatre. And that is why when we say that Miller actually blends these two things together, realism and expressionism. So first of all, little bit about realism and then a little bit about expressionism. Now, what exactly is realism in arts? Now, realism in any art is a very huge topic, is a very complicated topic, but I'm running a risk of actually reducing this very important idea into certain, identifiable features. Realism in drama is, and I'm quite aware of the risk which I'm running. So what is realism in drama? In simple terms, realism in drama means lifelike situations, lifelike characters, and lifelike dialogue. Now, this idea, life, is very complicated. Let us not go into that. But in order for you people to understand what is realism in theatre, these are the three markers: realism, lifelike characters, lifelike situations, and lifelike speech. These three elements actually define what is realism in theatre. So if you look at the plays written by Miller, you would see that the situations the characters find themselves, they are very lifelike, they are very relatable. The language which is used by Miller, especially his dialogues, now this is a feature which we discussed in the previous lecture also. It is very naturalistic, it is very lifelike. So lifelike situations, lifelike language, and I said lifelike characters. So if you look at some these characters in Miller, you would see that they are just like you and me. What do I mean by that? I mean that if you look at the characters from the play On My Sons, if you look at the characters from Death of a Salesman, you would see that, these are the people whom we know. He's like my uncle, or she's like my aunt, or he's like my brother. They're very relatable. Though rooted in American soil and American milieu, you would see that you have seen such stereotypes even around you. So lifelike situations, lifelike characters, lifelike dialogues. These are some of the markers of realism in theater. Now, the second idea, expressionism, is slightly complicated because expressionism as an artistic movement, first of all, took place in painting, and from painting it percolated in German cinema and then came to theater also. Expressionism simply means exploring the reality, the psychological reality of a character. Now, for example, you people are witnessing me. You are seeing what is I am trying to say. You would see that here is a male, middle aged, one who's wearing a wristwatch, one who's wearing certain kind of a dress. So a middle class person, slightly plump and things like that. But these are my outer features. But what is going on inside my mind? For example, I am speaking into this instrument, this exercise I find rather unnerving. But that nervousness is not to be seen the way I am talking about. Now that is my inner reality. So the outer reality and the inner reality. Expressionism tries to track the inner reality, which is not captured by the realism. So Miller becomes very important because he blends these two very important things. He brings in the element of realism and he brings in the element of inner reality or psychological realism also. And in order to explore that psychological realism, he has to make use of expressionism, and that is why Miller is such a brilliant playwright. Now, the next technical feature is the non-linear narrative. So, as I've already told you that these lectures are not meant for advanced learners. So, I will explain each and everything in slightly in a detailed way, and I don't want to insult anybody's intelligence by doing so. Now, what exactly I mean by non-linear narrative? Now, if you look at the definition of plot and plot and story, the simple difference between plot and story is that story is a series of thens. King died, then queen died. That becomes a story. But king died, therefore the queen died of sadness becomes the plot, right? So, story is the way events are presented either in the narrative or dramatized on the stage, right? So, that is one way of doing it. And now the plot is a logical connection between event 1 and event 2, event 3 and event 4. So, that is how the logical connection is explored. Now, if you look at Miller's plays, especially his mature work, The Death of a Salesman, you would see that the events which take place in the lives of the Norman family, they are not dramatized in a linear fashion. Sometimes the play takes place in past, sometimes some of the scenes which come after that takes place in so